Welcome back. And here we are going to discuss something different. Different because it is all about kind of politics, kind of government, right? And here we are going to talk about the this democracy. We all know that the democracy is by the people for the people, and here we've got a lot of liberty. But sometimes this can also be quite challenging to have democracy in the country, right? Because you know that liberty can mean different to different people, right? Freedom can mean different to different people. We know that we've got the right to free, speech. We've got right to practice any religion. But how many people know it in true sense, right? So this is what we're going to talk about, and जो बोलने जा रहे हैं, this is all about American democracy, right? Because we are going to talk about this Tocqueville's book which he has
Alexis,
written,
yeah.
right? So Robin, before I start asking you questions and you go deeper into it, I want you to say more about it, because you are from the same field and you know a lot about it. I think people want to know a lot, and people want to know what are the aspects which are hidden and which they must know, and how can this be capitalized on? I mean, how can people make the most of democracy? Because people don't really know everything about democracy, and what is the most fascinating thing about democracy, right? So before I start asking questions, I want you to start saying a little about it, then we'll go deeper into it.
Okay, very good evening and good evening to everyone. It's a nice topic because I think, as we know now, the time has come to be more democratic because we, as a part of this universe, have faced a lot of tyranny in the name of authoritarianism, despotism. In fact, if we go back to some 100 years, then we will find Europe was a origin or a country which dealt with a lot of despotism or authority or aristocracy, right? Which
Yeah,
meant that a person's taking born will be his life, his career, and his everything will be decided on it. Means everything will be decided on the basis of his birth. So that was the situation then, and it is still a situation in many part of the world, right? Now thereafter, people thought why we should not have something more you know mm, constructive, which could really support growth, which could really support liberty, which could really extend liberty to people to a certain extent where people could start uh, doing some creativity, right? It is often understood, right, that people who live at their liberty always end up doing some creative things, right?
yeah,
Because people need some sort of a space in their life to show their skill, to display their potential. And if you keep pressing them, if you keep suppressing them with your regressive policies, then people find it really hard to come out openly and to express their true potential or the will what they can do really. Democracy really helps in that matter, undoubtedly, because democracy tells us about few things which are really important. And what are all those few things? One, equality. It deals with equality. Equality is very important aspect of democracy, because when we say equality, we simply mean to say that we are talking about people are equal
yeah,
regardless of the place from they come, or the education they get, or the religion they belong to, the race they come from. These things are put aside, and what is taken at the center is only their individuality, and everyone is given equal treatment, even if it is a hospitality, even if it is a treatment from the hospital, or even if it is an opportunity for any job or offices or any working, especially official government official, all are treated equally with the same skill. So there is no as such discrimination. And therefore, it inspires many other countries. I mean, India got inspired by it, undoubtedly, right? So we have fundamental rights right from the inspirations that we took from America, right?
yeah,
So these are the things which really, extolled the very aspect of democracy and caused people to think more about it, why we should adopt it without having an ounce of hesitation, because it is now the need which will determine the next 100 or 200 years. In fact, many philosophers came out in this regard and they vociferously advocated it without mincing their words, that why do we need to have this democracy? Because we humans are always seen as a supreme creatures,
Yes.
and the blessing gifts, especially gifts in the sense that we are all blessed as human beings, and we are the very, very precious uh, gifts or precious objects, or you can say precious creations of the god itself. Because if we compare humans with some other animals, then it is only the human which possesses the power of imagination.
Yeah.
It possesses the power of, reasoning, critical thinking, which is purely absent in animals and in other forms of creatures. And it is often said and supported by many of the philosophers that if this critical thinking, analytical understanding, or reasoning needs to be constructively used and to be utilized and capitalized the most, then it's important that the human should be given all freedom, all equality, without, you know, dealing them with any sort of discriminatory rules. Thereafter, this concept democracy comes in. So these are all things which are really important, which makes democracy as an essential rule book, if I can say, to run the country, to govern the country in a more rightly manner, and giving equal opportunities to all, so that growth, as we humans often, seek for, could be easily achieved and obtained. And in this way, we keep inspiring other people. As what happened, we got inspired from the America, and let's see the condition of India right now, are way different from what it was before, right?
Yes.
So at least every woman right now is all free, and girls are having their voter rights. They have got franchisee.
They are going to
So
schools. We can say
they are
earlier
going
they were
to
not allowed to go out.
they were not allowed to go out. They were treated as just people who were confined to the
Four
walls
walls.
of
Four
halls,
walls.
and we can see their grievous, irritability, which
Yeah.
often expressed by them. So all these things, were there, but now you can see things have been completely eliminated. However, there are more things to be done. But I mean, comparing today to our yesteryears, we are way better.
Yeah.
I think we are moving ahead in this directions, and probably we are going to be more better. In this regard, one book which we are going to discuss today, as we have talked about, and that is one philosopher,
Tocqueville's American and philosopher
Alexis
and
de
democracy.
Tocqueville.
Yeah.
Alexis de Tocqueville. And that book is all about American democracy. In this book,
Mm-hmm.
he deals with major features, salient features of American democracy. He also talks about some drawbacks in it, which still needs to be rectified,
Yeah.
and for that needs to be uh, you know uh, progressed or advanced, so that other countries could be accepting it and applying it in their own democracy. So all these things we are going to cover in this video. Over to you.
When I read about Tocqueville's, I got to know that he visited America in the year I think 1831, right? And there he saw this democracy, and he was quite captivated, by this democracy. Then he started drawing comparison between democracy and that aristocracy.
European
Yeah, European,
European
yeah.
aristocracy.
And he got to know about so many things, and which as there are certain things which he found quite enticing, right? And that's why he thought that it should be there in the countries, right? So one thing I want to ask you is, tell me, what was Tocqueville's primary purpose in writing democracy in America?
See, as he's a French philosopher, and he came across certain events in his life which he found inhuman, according to him, and that moved him to accept democracy. That moved him to appreciate American democracy for different reasons. And in this way he you know advocated for the American democracies, so that European countries could come and accept American democracy and change you know their their rules, their regulations, which there were for last hundreds and hundreds of years and producing no result at all, right? Aristocracy was one of those major, you can say, bone of contention, especially for uh, Alexei, because he found this particular concept of aristocracy is often rooted with, uh, is often rooted with a certain kind of, idea on where only one particular community has a right to dominate majority of people. And this is not governed by any reasoning, this is not governed by any sort of critical understanding. There is no as such rule. The only rule is that if someone has taken a birth in some aristocratic family, then he by birth becomes the king, he by birth becomes a superior in all possible ways, whether he possesses that intelligence, whether he possesses that discerning ability, whether he possesses all those
Leadership
important,
qualities.
yes, all those important you know uh, uh, things which are needed to regulate the government, to regulate the country. And when he compared aristocracy with American democracy, he found American democracy is doing really, really great, far greater than what European was doing. And then he thought, what this government has, what this democracy had. Then he talked about, as I told you in the previous part, that equality that came out first, because equality outright reject this notion of aristocracy, which means it has no room for anyone who wants to establish their authority only on the basis of their birth, only on the basis of the legacy or something they have inherited from their ancestors. So these particular rules have been completely exterminated from the rule book, especially in the democracy, in the American democracy. And what was prevailing instead of it was your personal individual capacity. So under one's individual capacity, what you can do, what a person can do, will be a sole determining factor of what you are going to be in future. That was the specialty of American democracy, and that was what you can say, you know put the America at center for everyone to come and have a discussion on that and adopt some features of it. So we can see thereafter that several countries came after and tried to access to some elements of the democracy. They added some parts of American democracy to their own democracy, as what India did. India actually got, as we know, fundamental rights from the America itself. So
Mm.
these were the instances we then, experienced and we applied to our democracies, and consequently we got the results. And mostly results were positive, as we saw. So these things were very inspiring to Mr. Alexis, the French philosopher. And I think for this, he wanted why other people should not know about it. But at the same time, as I talked and as I discussed, that he also deals with some some negative
Negative
parts of the
aspects.
democracy,
Yeah.
right? So that was what he was much inspired about. Over to you.
And we know that every coin has two aspects. So same is the case with the democracy as well. But when we look at the positive part of the part of this particular kind of way of governing the country, we see that there are so many you can say good sides. For example, we can say we in our own country have seen that a person who sells tea has become the president of prime minister of the country, and he is not only the prime minister of the country, he has also become the world's most
Right.
popular leader, right?
Right.
So, and this is this could also this could become possible just because of the power of democracy.
Democracy, right?
Anybody, no matter what background they are coming from, no matter what what caste or caste they belong to,
Mm.
whatever their past is, doesn't
Birth
matter.
cannot be a.
But
Yeah.
people who have got qualities can make their mark in any field they are
Mm,
striving for, right? So this is the positive side of democracy, right?
right.
And one more thing that they have the equality. I mean, if I am willing to practice any religion or profess any religion, nobody is gonna stop me because this is the right have been given
Mm,
by the constitution, because we are living in a country which is treating all
mm,
religions equally. Next thing I want to ask you is, as we talked about that, what was the purpose of writing this particular book, which is very popular, right? One more thing I would like to ask you is this: tell me, why did Tocqueville emphasize the role of religion? This is the question which we discussed in
yeah.
the previous videos. So he talks about the role of religion in sustaining democracy. One more
Mm.
thing adding to this is that how does American this democracy differ from European political system that is completely different from this, right? So just
Okay. Okay, let me first deal with the very first question you asked about the role of religion, right? And then we will move to the second question. In fact, both are almost a merged question, right?
yeah,
Uh, when I was reading that book, I was really uh, confounded because since America is known as having no personal inclination towards any religion, that's what
yeah,
it is status. Therefore, we say it is what that governs uh, negative definition of religion, which is Indian democracy, because we have a positive definition of religion. Means we have equal faith, equal respect and regard to all forms of religion. But if you come in America, you find that there is no interference of state, especially into the religion. Means both are completely separated. So both are different two entities, and both of them have no inter, connections in any way. So there is no such as requirement of interventions into each other's actions or the domains. Okay, so that what makes America a little different. Now, the question arises, what is the role of religion thereafter? Since the state government or the state policy has no such interference, as we have already read and discussed about it, then how then this religion can be really a vital, pillar, especially in governing the society, in governing America as whole? Then things which I was very, you can say, persuaded, which really persuaded me a lot, because in which it was written that we cannot be always dependent on a state for every single thing. Secondly, we don't expect always that the state government or the state policy to be, restrictive, right? In terms that it restricts everyone, and they actually rule out, or they lay out a certain, some staunch regulations or very strict regulations. Now, under the circumstances, who else could come out as an assistance, as a regulator, those who regulate the movements of the people, right? Then it is said that it's religion, as a religion, as an authority, which could really play a very pivotal role in that. Because when any church comes into this action of uh, of moduling, especially uh, a mind of a person, in order to make him a complete human, then it itself somewhere reduces the burden on the state policy, because we have two options available: whether you can you know forcefully make a person you know compliant to rules and authorities as described and mentioned in the rule book, and if he fails to do that, then there are certain provisions of punishments which
yeah,
are imposed on him. This is one. And the second is that why can't we make him a, a truly a human? And how it can be possible when some spiritual gurus, right from the churches, to teach them a moral lesson, and to guide them how they could be more enlightened, and how they can conduct themselves in a more humanly manner. So when these people learn things from these spiritual masters there from the church, then they somewhere become a more responsible people. And once the person becomes responsible, it is said that state policy doesn't require to be more forceful, right, and more regressive or suppressive in order to suppress the movements or muzzle the voice of the youth, right? In this way, religion plays a very striking role in maintaining a very sacred environment of the society. Because even if you come to India right now, we have fundamental rights, but on the other hands we have directive principle. Okay, directive principles are what? It is only dealing with your moral aspect, which means that if you fail to move, apply your moral duty or responsibility, then you may not be punished, because there is no as such provisions of punishment under directive principles. But you must yourself know that you should do that, right? And if you fail to do that, you are somewhere violating a very rule of the society. If today you are not facing the consequences of your violations, probably you are going to face tomorrow.
Yes.
Now these are the things which are properly taught to all these people, especially by the spiritual gurus, especially in America. And that's how they commit to make a society as a robust society. And when we know that people who are governed by their moral values and ethical values, and people do have some decency left in them, then I don't think any state policy needs ever to interfere in their matter to rectify them, to even reprimand them. Reprimand is needed only for those, chastisement is needed only for those who really have become depraved personality, as
Yes.
what is happening right now in India. We all know about it. It's not a case of failure of their education, it's a case of moral failure, what
Moral,
Alaba
yeah,
says.
this is nowadays we have lost, to be honest, and we have lost those moral values, and that's why we can see these vulgarity happening, and people have become indecent, they're passing indecent remarks. Why this happens? Because somewhere they have
Moral
lost
failure, this
morals.
is
Yes.
this is all moral failure.
Yeah.
And why? I mean, you don't need to you don't need to go to America to understand that. We can understand right from within India, right?
Yeah.
What is the function of religion within India? The religion plays the same role as the religion playing in America. Here it teaches
Yes.
about moral values. Here it teaches about how to be, well conducted, how to be, you know, humanly, how to be well, civilized person, how to, maintain ourselves in a rightful manner, how to be more polite to other, how to be more responsible towards other, how to not make things worse and complicated for self interest. What are all these? These are all things which are purely governed by your minds, your moral understanding, your overall sensibility, your overall sensitivity towards the people, right? And these things cannot be rectified, or you can say things can never be changed just with the help some punishment, with the help some strict rules and regulations, unless a person from within wants to change himself. So these transformations are all given, or all you can say infused right from these people, spiritual gurus. And I think that's why in America this churches play this very pivotal role in that, to make the human's mind full of moral values and making them more decent, so that their presentations in the society should be more inspiring and other people could get inspiration from them. And respect towards each other, regard towards each other could be bit more increased, and self value and respect could be more increased. So that is what the major role, I think, the role especially the American church or the religion plays, especially in the America, right? You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add more to it, and it really resonates with me because what I believe is that somewhere we are lacking in this. You can see the education system. We are focusing so much on, or we are emphasizing so much on the technology should be the inseparable part of our life. We are teaching them about everything, but what we're not teaching them is the moral values, right? This should be the inseparable part of our education system, but somewhere, even I'm not just talking about the education system, I'm also talking about the families. We are also lacking these things in families, because now you would say, nowadays what we observe is that people are busy in their own lives. The job doers who come, and the
Right.
job doer who comes, and then even in the family who are staying and staying at home, they're also busy in their own lives, and they have no time to teach the kids and to talk about religion, to talk about good things, good conduct. They don't have time for this thing. They talk about this and that, that is not going to be productive. But what can give, what can shape the future, I mean, shape the future of the kids, and shape the future of the nation altogether. So this should be given more and more
Right.
importance, but this is where the shoe pinches, that
Right.
know the reality, but nobody is taking the charge. Nobody is actually willing to make this world a better place.
Right.
The result is in front of us, right? Next thing we are going to discuss is, tell me, how did the governance contribute to the success of American democracy? Because governance has to be there. I'm also adding one more question to the same, and that is that how does the principle of equality impact governance and social mobility, especially in America?
Okay, this is very interesting. That see, first, I mean, we have seen the era, especially. In fact, we haven't seen it, but we have read about it that when there was a prevailing aristocracy, so there was a system where people were not given opportunities, they were not given chances, or their the chances were like, you know, almost blocked off for a reason that they were not belonging to a certain kind of family, or they were not having any connections to certain highly dignified family or distinguished family, right? And these things were only confined as a right to only one segment of people. In this way out, it's very natural that the overall growth of a country could not be maximized. As we have discussed many a time, that if we really want to expand the entire you can say status of a country that involves in its economic, social, political, and everything, then it requires contribution from all around. It requires contribution from all sections of people, and for this there should be some positive policies to be rolled out, giving equal opportunities and chances to everyone, regardless of the person, regardless of their positions, regardless of the caste, religion, and everything. Because it's your talent, it's your skill that is there to assist in American economy, American social upliftment, political upliftment. And if it is like stifled in this way, in the name of aristocracy, in the name of some other issues, okay, for whatever the reason, then it is just like you are going to hurt your own country's interests. And that's what happened. I mean, for over the period of time, especially across the globe. Thereafter, this concept came in. This democracy concept came in, and therefore, America, you know, got developed in a very short span of time. I mean, you compare the time that America got independence and how rapidly it progressed after this independence. It's almost unparalleled. It is unmatchable. You compare America to India's, the same struggle. India also got independence. It's now more than 75 years around since we got independence. But
Yeah.
there is a way difference in the overall, development, achievements that we have had right now, and compare it with America, right? So there are things which makes America far better than any other countries. So therefore, it becomes a reason for a study for all of us why we should not study the democracy of America, because there are something there. One important thing which is found out as a major part of uh, American democracy, as we are talking about equality and how equality contributes the growth Okay, especially American country. Equality, as we have talked about, equality means to be given equal opportunities. Now, when you give equal opportunities to people, you give them, a chance to display their talent, to showcase their potential. And now, in this way, a person becomes even all free because they take this liberty and they enjoy that liberty. As we have talked already, that if you really want to see a man and it's the real potential that is hidden in him, then give him a free space and see
Yes.
how he thrives in a shorter span of time. And when an individual thrives, its impact can be easily perceived on the democrat on entire country, and especially the people living around him. And that's what this equality, really produce as a result to the entire American country. And therefore, every person is given equal liberty, equal freedom. Recently, I don't know whether you have seen this recent meeting. Trump has become the president already of America,
Yes. Yes.
and he got to he one day got an opportunity to go one church where he was sitting there. A special thing about this incident is that he was not given that much VIP, protocol.
Treatment. Yeah.
Yes. And secondly, he was there sitting in the church as some common person sitting there. And there was no, as such, proper arrangement which could reflect his dominance of some kind, right? Which could, manifest his power of precedence. Nothing was there, as what is very popular in India. I mean,
In
I don't
India,
need to say
if you're a VIP, you'll be given, a VIP treatment. I mean, red carpet treatment.
red carpet is obviously rolled out for you, and you have to trade this. Especially what happened in Mahakumbh is one
Yeah.
of those
Say, yeah,
brutal
those the
examples.
tycoons who went there, they got, easily. I mean, they got there easily, and they could take the dip very easily
Very easily.
without having to stand in the queue, right?
That they are all free from all those troublesome things,
Yes.
right?
And a common man, I mean, layman,
Hmm.
they have to suffer actually. So this is not at all wrong. This is not at all right.
Right.
This is
Yes, right.
completely wrong.
This is completely wrong. So that what this equality means.
Yeah, so
And to
there is
say
no
that
equality actually. This is not equality.
this is not, and to say that we follow equality, I think is not sufficient when you practically demonstrate it. In
Yes.
India, we miserably fail to, to do the practical experimentation of this equality. When
Yes.
it comes to these kinds of events like Mahakumbh and any such events, where really it requires the government to showcase its equality, or the policy of equality, and give equal treatment to all, but it always fails in doing so. But you go to America, they are so staunchly following their principles, so that even the president cannot be exempted from it. So this is the beauty of the democracy. We follow the democracies, but there are still those elements which we need to learn, which we need to practically experience, in especially in the society, in the administrative exercises, so that something could be, as a big fruit could be achieved from it. Otherwise, being democracy and violating these major elements what makes democracy, I think will certainly lead to you know uh, incomplete democracy. And when you follow incomplete democracy, I think there is nothing as such to achieve from it, right? It will be almost equal to aristocracy. So these are the things which makes America better than other countries, because everyone is given equal treatment, liberty, as well as regard. Which is more important? You go to America, you have your right to say anything against American president, and no person could even come and say any detestable word to you. No one can
Yeah.
even force you to go back from the place. That is the beauty of American and Americans' liberty. They give their priority to liberty than anything else, because they know if you snatch someone liberty, then you are going to stifle their creativity. And once the creativity is weakened, its impact on the entire social activities can be seen and experienced, right? What do you?
And what we see, this is a very common scene right here in India, that when a minister comes, you'll see a long rally. And who has to suffer? The people, the common men, or the common people have to
Common
suffer.
man, obviously.
I mean, all the roads are blocked, right? And they are given a proper place to move. And when they leave, the last car leaves, then the people are allowed to go. Why can't they go? Why can't they be the part of the crowd? I mean, nobody is going to know that who is traveling if you don't showcase all those things. I mean, you just remove your name and
Right.
other things, then people will not be getting to know about it, and then you can easily move. Nobody's going to trouble you. Then why to they're just throwing the weight around, because they know that they have got the power. And
Right.
this is something which is not at all the part of a democracy, because in democracy
Hmm.
people are treated equally.
Hmm.
Next thing which we are going to discuss is, tell me, how does democracy promote materialism and individualism according to Tocqueville? And one more question we can take along with it, and that is, what dangers did Tocqueville foresee in an overly, centralized government?
Okay, let's deal with the first one, individualism and materialism, or you can say community responsibility, right?
Yeah.
As we dealt with it, that America gives much priority to individuals' liberty, which means it's your individuality, which is there to be given much importance by
Yes.
all the rules and regulations of the democracy. And that is what is the subject to protection, especially of the American democracy. So they give much care in how many ways, especially individual or individuality can be protected, right? Because it is the only source of creativity. And once the creativity is secured, I think we can have a positive results on the economy as well as all aspects of the country, which are the key drivers of the country, right? Now, but at the same time, they talk about very important part. What is this? They are drawing a relationship between individualism and community responsibility. They accept individualism. They respect and give due regard to individualism, which is the major part and element of the democracy of America. But at the same time, they gave equal importance that individualism can never be a, you can say, a source of suffering for community, which means that one person may do anything, especially in the name of liberty, but the same person cannot do certain thing through which the entire community is affected adversely. And that what they take care of a lot. For them it is the matter to be cautiously dealt with. So that's how they draw a relationship, first of all, between individualism and community responsibility. What is more important to protect the democracy is obviously individualism, but it should not be at the cost of community responsibility. Therefore we say, as we have many times discussed, that we are okay to give you all rights in the name of your liberty, as we call them fundamental rights, but only your fundamental rights will be protected and secured when you follow your duties, which means when you behave much dutiful towards the right of other. And that's how these things are well connected. So individualism is all okay, but following this individuality, one has to be fully responsible towards the entire community, because entire community reflects a larger section of people, and that actually makes a complete gives a complete picture of America. So just for the sake of one's happiness, the profit of the profit of the community cannot be undermined. That is also one of the important elements. So this is almost left on the choice of an individual how he wants to behave in this way. We have provided you this particular thing, and now you have to choose what you want to do. But at the end of the day, you have to be very responsible for what you do. You do anything as you are private personality. You can do anything, but your action cannot be impacting the entire community, community of America. And now we can have this very you can say uh, an understanding from this, that how things are very properly balanced in America. That on the one hand they are balanced, they are one hand, fending the entire, individualism as a major element of the democracy, but at the same time they are also giving a due importance to the community. So how all these things are going hand in hand, and that's how the country goes ahead and achieves its objective, as it has been doing for last, several or hundreds of years, right? Yes.
So we talk about what dangers he talks about that he foresees if this democracy is overly centralized. This becomes an overly centralized government.
Central can
Centralized
you please
government, yes. They when this
centralized
becomes
government?
overly centralized government.
See, I mean, Lexi talks about that. See, one big country can can hardly be regulated, with a central force. Why? Because people are living in the remotest part of the country, and when the power is only allocated at the central level, and there is no such federal system arrangement
So
which
that's
could
why
really
he talks about federalism, right?
yes, he talks about federalism for one reason, that services should be accessed to all section of people regardless of the place where they live, since they are the part of the territory. And this that becomes that just becomes their right to access all benefits from the governments. So when the power is just regulated or assigned to only central authority, then it becomes really hard to expediently, allocate those policies and the benefits of policies to all section of people. And then comes the requirement of a certain second agency. The second agency is known as federalism. So state governments in India, we call it
They're in
state
the
governments.
form
This is
of
also a state
they're
government.
the form of federation, no,
Yeah,
federalism,
federalism.
sorry, federalism, yeah.
Yes. So state governments comes and play the same role as central government does. But state governments look after their own state people living in the confined boundary, a specific constituency. And thereafter comes, local, you can say panchayat and all these things, especially in India. So that's how these resources are properly allocated. These resources are properly accessed to all section of people.
And so in India, the government, especially the central government, shares its power with the state governments. That is
State
called
governments.
power sharing, right?
This is power sharing. Yes, this is
Mm.
this is all about power sharing. Because state government cannot imagine a government. Imagine a government where there is a prime minister and there are only few people under his ministry. Now all these 5 to 10 people could be sufficient to tackle the issues of the entire country. It's not
This is
possible.
next to impossible.
It's next to impossible, right? So for this, they have to have certain arrangements, and these arrangements are known as federal systems, states, and they commission their power. They are the deputies, you can say in some words. They are the deputies, and to which these some powers are assigned and commissions, and they discharge their, powers in this way. They actually regulate the things, especially on behalf of the central government. And each state government or federal government has their specific population to handle, in which they look after their requirements, they look after all these things, which actually makes them satisfied, right? So this is there for the gratification of some specific number of population in particular one area. And that's how this federal system works. But imagine where central government speaks in its power and authority and misuses it. Then let's say what could be the possible conditions of it. I mean, we can imagine that one central government has acquired almost all powers in its hand, and it is the only sole governing authority. Now we can see and imagine the possible situation that may arise. First, the central government cannot be having easily access to all those people. Secondly, the central government really find it hard to go and have a direct connect to the people living in the remotest part, let alone dealing with their needs, let alone serving them some benefits or some policy benefits or treatment, as what happens mostly, right? So these things will be very difficult for the central government, and things will be more troublesome, unmanageable. So a situation when becomes unmanageable, it's better to arrange certain authority in the name of, you can say, federal state system or state government. So these are the things this state government, especially American democracy, deals with, and therefore we see in America there is no as such power has been given to central. Yes, America has power, the central government has power, especially when there is a threat or any menace, exist to the entire country. Thereafter, the central government comes out and takes, power in its own hand and regulate it. For example, if there is a condition arising such as war-like situation against America, then America doesn't need to ask any help or any permission from the federal authority. That should be go ahead and start the war against the country. No, that is all the sole, you can say, authority or the power of the domain of central government of America, in which it doesn't seek any sort of permission or any consent from any of the state authority or the federal authority. And I think to this extent it is quite acceptable. But overall, arrangement of federalism in America is absolutely commendable. But at the end, on the other hand, if we assume that central government takes a lot of power in its hand, then I think this could be properly completely messed up, and people would be dissatisfied, disappointed, right? So that's how the democracy works there, and the federal systems and its relationship with the central governing authority.
So this is what we talked about, what's there in the book and what he has talked about, right? But now I'm asking you to talk about the relevance of whatever he's written, whatever he observed, and whatever he thinks is the best thing, right? So we are going to talk about the relevance of all those things, all those insights which he has put in the book. So
Hmm.
what relevance they have in they hold in today's time. So what I'm gonna ask you is tell me, are Tocqueville's warnings still valid in modern democracy, right? And one more thing is that what lessons one can learn from especially the nation. I'm talking about nation. What lessons a nation can learn from the democracy of America?
Okay, let's first discuss about the warnings. See, Alex, Alex is very positive and optimistic about democracy of America, undoubtedly. But at the same times, he, uh, using his acumen, philosophical acumen, he comes out to a conclusion that there are certain things which needs to be revisited to make it even more better, so that it could make a complete democracy. And what are those things according to him? First, he deals with one, that is the threat of majority. This threat of majority sounds to be very pertinent subject, especially when we talk in the Indian context too, right? See, a country becomes a democratic country because it has a democratic rule book, and everyone has to abide by it. A person who disregards it or violates or breaks any rule, he becomes subject to certain kind of specific punishments, right? But what happened that within the country, if a large section of people, which is known as the majority section, starts governing in its own way and dominating the minority, then it becomes really hard for even a democracy to handle this affair, right? Because often it goes unnoticed. So thereafter, things has to be dealt very carefully, even in the context of America as well as in the context of India too. How it can become more uh, inimical, especially in the context of development, in the context of country's social upliftment, political upliftment, that when a country is governed by a democracy, it's all good. But when a large section of the people in the same country becomes united against a minority, and since they are majority, so it can be assumed that they will have more representation in the parliament, and since they have more representation in the parliament, it is quite likely that they will roll out and enact those policies which give them favor. So
Yeah.
this is some kind of self-centered policy. And since it is all governed by democracy, then in other way we can say it is much inimical to the minority. It is much hostile in nature to the minority. So on the one hand, this majority is taking all benefits from it, using its power, whatsoever it is, in the name of democracy. But on the other hand, if someone who is losing there as a position is the minority, and that is to be looked after in this. That's what the major warning, especially this, Lexi, uh, deals and rolls out for people to come and understand it, so that it could be eliminated right from it. You can say flourish and thrives in the upcoming year. So this was one of the major warning, right? One of those warnings he also gave about as we have talked about federalism also too,
Yeah.
federalism and central authority. He also deals with the same thing, because he is absolutely against with the notion that central government should be given all right and all power. So there should be a balance in the distribution of the power between central authority and the federalism, so that federalism should not be dependent purely on the central authority for their own routine issues. So
Yeah.
this is the
The
second
things
warning.
which they can decide on their own, they should not be looking to the government for
Yes,
those things.
yes, that's what the second authority, right?
Yeah.
So these were the warnings, he was dealing with, and I think he nicely puts out these things, and I think he tells people to have a detailed understanding on it, a deep understanding on it, and apply it to their own democracies, and do major change if it is required, right? What else you discussed
Yeah,
about it?
he say what lessons a nation can learn from the democracy of America.
What lessons? I think it's there are several things that we can learn from the democracy of America. And why do we need to learn? First of all, we need to have some strong reasons. So the first reason, according to me, is that America has really touched uh, to a certain height, which is really appreciable, which really uh, takes a compliment from across the globe, undoubtedly, right? Even if you can say the medical system of America, even you can include the education system, you can also deal with one thing which is something, one of my favorite things in America, that is their civic organization system, which makes America a very unique country itself. Civic organization is a local body, and a special thing about this civic organization is that it is not at all governed by any government body or governmental authority. This means that if there is a problem arising in a society at time, and if there is lesser possibility that the government can come in and do a certain assistance in this, or provide a certain assistance in it, then in this case this civic organizations, which is privately owned, this is like a community service, they come out and try to solve the problem without seeking any help from the state government or the central government in America. This is what is more important. For example, uh, there is a voting, uh, you can say, system. I forgot the name of that particular organization, but that deals with uh, imparting of knowledge regarding voting and why we should vote. This is not governed by any government authority. It is governed by a certain community, a civic organizations, people like us who form the organization, and they start doing their services without taking any sort of monetary help, because they keep exchanging and they keep funding by themselves, and try to build up their own funding system, and they help and assist the country in that way. So they keep, teaching youngsters why they should vote, whom they should vote, what is the importance of democracy. National education system policy, NEA, is also there, much like in India, but it is absolutely detached from central authority. It is the national education policy which keeps dictating the education system, that these are the changes needs to be done in the education system. So that's how the civic organizations makes American, democracy even more robust and more powerful, right? Unlike other democracies. So these are the things which make me feel, uh, I think, very unique about, America. Yeah.
So this is what we wanted to talk about and why we chose this particular topic, because we already know that uh, America, right? It is the richest country in the world. It is the most powerful country in the world, and how it reached there, because it has got the system that is democracy, and people are making the most of it. People know that they have got all the liberty, and they could turn that liberty to their I think to their advantage, and that's what they have done, and they have shown to this world. And if one can learn from this particular system, I think there is a lot to learn, and we can also become like America, right? If a person talks about becoming rich, if a person talks about becoming successful, and people say that, oh, you've got American dream, right? There is a phrase called American dream. So
Uh,
why America is known to be a country where people would like to go, would like to make the career, right? So this is just because it has got its own identity, and I think this system can teach us a lot if put into practice, right? So this is what we wanted to talk about, and we will now be going to have other videos. They're going to be quite interesting, and they're going to be quite informative and knowledgeable. If one wants to make the lab better, I think they'll explore a lot
hmm.
from the podcast shows which we often create, because we are putting in a lot of efforts, right? With this, I'm taking a leave. I'll see you in the next video.